Namaskar, welcome back to Media Scan, your weekend dose of headlines, controversies and perspectives. Viewers, all other stories were pushed away when midweek, two people jumped into the Lok Sabha and tried to go towards the well of the House. It not only created a scare, but has raised lots of questions about this very serious security breach in Parliament, particularly on the day of the Parliament attacks anniversary. Were these people so disturbed and overcome by circumstances, as is being claimed, that they went to all this effort? And what about all the planning that went before this incident took place, which clearly indicates there was a lot of planning and thought behind it? Also, did they become useful tools or convenient tools in the hands of people who would like to destabilize the country and raise issues which are not exactly in the minds of the people? There are many other questions on the table, and to decipher all of them one by one, I have a very distinguished and interesting panel of guests here with me this evening. May I introduce Colonel R.S.N. Singh, well-known security expert and author. You have been listening to him on Media Scan on various earlier occasions. Namaskar, Colonel Singh, welcome back. Also with us here in the studio, L.R. Rao, former DCP of Delhi Police, has served for a long time in the special cell, which is now assigned the investigation of the Parliament security breach. Mr. Rao will be able to tell us what are the nitty-gritties of the situation, what might have happened, and what could be the direction of the investigations. Welcome back, sir.
Sure.
Dr. Chakshu Roy, well-known researcher, analyst, is associated with the PRS Legislative, perhaps the only organization of its kind in the country which studies legislations, goes into their research, and has been working in tandem with our legislators, our MPs, the academia and journalists at the same time. He has a long record of studying these institutions as well. Welcome to Media Scan, Dr. Chakshu Roy. And before I come to the guests to understand some of those very sensitive issues, a very quick look in a capsule about what exactly are the issues on the table and what might happen in the coming days. My first question comes to you, L.R. Rao. What I want to understand from you, sir, is, of course, the Home Minister himself, no less, has admitted that definitely there has been a security breach and not of a very small proportion. But as a senior cop, how would you explain the seriousness, the gravity of the situation? And also, if you could throw light on what could have been the dangers involved in what we witnessed midweek.
Yes, ma'am. This is a very serious incident which occurred day before yesterday, and particularly on a very significant day. That is the 22nd anniversary of our Parliament attack, which was done by the Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorists, and all those terrorists were now killed, but our paramilitary officers were also sacrificed their lives on that day. On that day, we paid homages to them also. But that's why this is a very significant day. And by this act of these persons who have been arrested by Delhi police, it seems to be a pre-planned conspiracy by them, and they might have been used as a tool in this case, and they might have wrecked the area where they found there's some slackness on the security aspects, and that's why they could plan all these things. And they belong to different states. They are not from one only state. And how they conspired between each other, and before doing all these things, they stayed in a house in Gurgaon. They collected there, and they finalized their plan. And on a particular day, that was also important, the two persons entered into inside the Parliament House, and two persons, including one lady, they showed their colors in outside that parliament, so that the attention of the security forces may be drawn, because that part of that game was earlier than they entered into Parliament House. But to one lady and the one person who did it in outside Parliament House, that was because of, I think so, that security forces will be diverted, attention of security forces will be diverted to them, and then their counterparts, those two persons who were sneaked into the parliament and went up to the balcony of the Darshak Dirgha, and then from there they could jump inside, and that was the very you can say gruesome plan of them, that they wanted to scare all the MPs present who were there, and then they wanted that their scene will be created, and then their recording will be communicated to all over India, not only India, that all over world.
Right. So it may not have been, engineered by a terrorist organization like the Jaish or whatever. So far, the security agencies have not hinted on that count. However, the fact that, like you just explained, they distributed their resources accordingly, and they had recce not once, but I'm told at least twice. That is what the information is filtering out. And also that, they went to a meticulous planning of procuring the necessary things. The fact that they managed to find plastic canisters, because the steel ones could have, triggered the metal detector, etc. All this planning, does this in a way add up to the fact that these were a motley group of people, frustrated with their circumstances, and they were driven to do it out of the, extenuating circumstances? Would you subscribe to that view? Because that is the view being peddled by a section in the country very vociferously.
No doubt these people may be having frustrated because of some unemployment or some other problems, but the persons who was behind them, they might have targeted them because of that reason, because they could have only do that. Because in terrorist attack also, the terrorist organizations select those people who are very much adamant and they are against the system. That's why they choose them also, and they motivate them, and that's why that reason may be. But these people might have been selected by the persons or the group who wanted to get it done, and they were motivated, and because the reason was there that as they claim that they were unemployed and they were frustrated because of so many reasons, and like Tanasai and all these things. That word Tanasai definitely connotes the mind of the persons who are behind this.
You mean it was a political
maybe
use of these words?
Yes, it
Let us ask Colonel R.S.N. Singh what he thinks about it. Colonel Singh, I was reading your the latest column that you have written, which clearly talks about a much larger conspiracy behind what is, being projected as a frustrated act by a group of people who were sort of driven to it because of their circumstances. But sir, the question is, there are definitely some people who will be frustrated with their circumstances, but it is other powers, much bigger powers, who keep scouting for such people to use them for such an occasion. How would you explain this entire thing, and why are you so convinced that there is a larger conspiracy involved?
Good morning to everybody. I don't know how dictatorship adds up with unemployment, and then unemployment adds up with Manipur, and then Manipur adds up with, the farmers' agitation, and I mean, the fellow was, he was gainfully employed. He was an auto rickshaw driver like many others in the country. And this lady who was involved, she has been, garnering one degree after another. So I don't know. I mean, this is totally a cock and bull story. And I will urge the people in the security establishment not to buy this nonsense at all. We have had enough, this root cause theorists, in the country, and we have suffered a lot because of them. The very fact, the selection of the date, the 22nd anniversary of the parliament attack, says it all. They have selected the dates because somewhere they draw inspiration from Afzal Guru and the methods that he employed. Now to say, I heard some people also saying that, because they used only, smoke which was not harmful. I'm sorry to say. Yes, you say that there is a political messaging, but a political messaging or any kind of social messaging can very well be done only through pamphlets. But here, what has happened, and you'll agree with me, that over the years, in the past 22 years, the security system in and around Parliament has been strengthened many folds. And there, I really admire, the Delhi police special cell. I mean, this is one of the best counter-terrorist organizations in the world. I have absolutely no doubt about it. When I was in RANW, I did interact with them. And I can say this. But so what has happened is that, because of the, tight security, I mean, they did not employ those methods which were employed in, say, 22 years back. So they went for the next best option.
Right.
So to say that, they cannot be connected with Jaish-e-Mohammed, I'm sorry to say that today, I mean, each one of them, if you go into their background, they are very much ideologically indoctrinated. And today, you really can't differentiate between a jihadi and a Maoist. The two have joined hands. And plus, the political parties. Terrorism has got horribly mixed with politics since 26/11. If it was not mixed, you couldn't have had politicians asking the Pakistani, Islamabad, to carry out 26/11.
Right.
You couldn't have politicians, surreptitiously signing MOU with the Chinese. And we all know that in India today, the terrorist compact is between the Maoists, the jihadis, the Khalistanis, and of course, people like George Soros.
Right. So this entire picture, it's a pretty scary picture, Colonel, to know that, political organizations may become a platform for people who are much more dangerous anti-national elements, and together this can come out as a very, very, very serious mix of a situation. But I'll come back to you on that. Before that, if we may just move away from this conspiracy thing to more day-to-day issues within Parliament, I want to ask Dr. Chakshu Roy here. Dr. Roy, I was reading your column earlier this week, and you have very clearly said that no doubt the security setup was beefed up manifold, as Colonel Singh said, post 2001. But now that this latest incident has happened, there is every possibility that people visiting the Parliament, especially to see the new building, which has caused a lot of curiosity, will be definitely discouraged. For the moment, of course, passes have been cancelled. And this may sort of create a bigger gap, a larger gap between people and their institution, which is not exactly a great thing in a democracy. But then you have seen the kind of situation that day. It is certainly a scary situation. Security of our legislators is as important. Do you see a way out of this situation where security is ensured optimally, but at the same time, people are not exactly, kept away?
Smitaji, I think you raised some very crucial questions. Now, I was listening to my fellow panelists. Let's recognize two things. Guarding the Parliament is an extremely complicated task because it is one of those institutions that requires a high level of security, but also is an institution that is designed for lakhs of people to come and visit it. So, for example, if it was any other government office, you could simply say that visitors are not allowed, and and it's very easy to then protect a building. But the purpose of a democracy is that people should be able to come and see their elected representatives, see as to what they're discussing. And that is what makes this complicated for security establishment as to where do you draw the line of ensuring that children, students, college students, normal visitors are able to come to Parliament, and then you're also able to effectively ensure that the premises of Parliament are secured and protected. So I think that's a dichotomous situation where you have a high-profile institution which also is high profile in the sense that normal citizens want access to it on a daily basis. So that's one challenge, and it's a bigger challenge. I think it's
Precisely.
I wouldn't be so harsh to say that the security agencies failed.
You would say that, would you say that debarring visitors at least for a certain time is certainly a no-go, no?
No. I think till the time we establish as to what are those weaknesses which need to be rectified, I think maybe it is judicious to stop it for a little while, and that is fair. But I think the larger question, so there is going to be one question around security which Rao Saab and Singh Saab will be able to answer. But the larger question would be, would we as a democratic nation, will we allow these such incidents to shut our parliament down to people? I think that's the larger thing. Yes, there were some people who behaved extremely recklessly, and their actions need to be severely condemned. It should not have happened. And there will be a process that will take place to ensure that the security establishment is beefed up, we find the reasoning behind it, and people get punished. And on the same time, we should also be encouraging people to say that the institution of parliament is a sacred institution. This is not the institution where you come and do a dharna that you do on the street. This is the temple of democracy. So how do we create that environment? How do we ensure that people respect the sacrosanct of that institution? I think that's another question that we need to ask.
Very
the security agencies will do their job.
So what do you propose are the best ways to create this awareness among people, not to, use the parliament as the place to voice their discontent or whatever that can, for that there are designated places already in every city.
I think, what will need to happen is it's not going to be one simple thing. I think respect for institutions will have to be, dealt by, let's say, members of parliament themselves. Are they respecting the institution? When people see their members of parliament behaving in a certain way, it might encourage people to behave in a certain way.
Fine.
So let's figure out mechanisms as to what is the institution that can do. For the time being, let's limit, entries till the time the investigation is complete and other things are done. But I think this should encourage Parliament and our security establishment to say, if more and more people can come and see as to what's happening. Right?
Okay,
right?
That's a lot of points to think over.
Absolutely, because if we're going to let two reckless individuals shut down an entire parliament, then possibly they have achieved their purpose.
Correct.
Shouldn't we be making sure that the parliament continues to remain open for everyone?
That's a point. And Rao, that is exactly what I would want to understand from you too, sir. For the benefit of our viewers, just as Dr. Roy said, if two people, whether tools in the hands of bigger powers or otherwise, if they're intruding into the house, manages to take us to a situation where people are not allowed entry, perhaps they have achieved their purpose.
Yes.
So, first of all, we have seen a lot of security being beefed up in our own eyes. As eyewitnesses, I have seen the entire situation of the security changing post 2011. Now, certainly there is another set of thinking going on, and as per the committee that has been constituted, one of the terms of reference is to ensure foolproof security in future. We are hearing of certain things like, can we put a glass partition in the gallery so nobody can jump so easily. But what in your view would you say are 2, 3, 4 things that can be done right away to ensure such a thing doesn't reoccur, but our parliamentarians feel safe in discharging their duties, but at the same time people are not shut out?
Yes, ma'am. You have rightly you have explained all these things, but for certain regions, that because that security is a very important aspect nowadays, and especially the security of vital installations. That's in our country, that's more important because of the terrorism and all these things. And more particularly about the security of parliament is very prominent because it is a sacred house for the democracy, you can say. That's a temple of democracy. So keeping the balance of doing all these things in the parliament by the parliamentarians and also allowing public to enter into this consideration should be balanced in mind. That should not be stopped like this. Otherwise, I agree with Dr. Saab. If we stop, we don't allow people to come inside and see the parliament from inside, then the purpose will be achieved. So we should not discontinue it, and for more particularly, we must beef up our security time and again with the latest equipments and latest training to the security personnel also, because at some point of time the security persons doing all the same thing, they are monotonous job, and they may be some complacent in that in their duty. So
right,
that's
also an interesting aspect.
That's
yes.
very important, that the security personnel should be trained, rehearsed, and refresher courses must be done, and particular security officials, set of particular officers who are searching on the frisking duties, they should not be allowed to do that duty with the continuous long hours.
For too long.
Very too long. They should be changed whether 2 hours or 3 hours, because so that they can do their duties very perfectly.
So you are suggesting that along with the technical beef up, rotation of the security personnel and their regular refresher courses, etc., are important.
That is more important.
But sir, there's one very fine technical point. When there was a lot of ruckus inside Parliament, and some people later they were suspended also, a question was raised about, you know, the government not being worried about the security. And the speaker was very categorical in saying that security of the Parliament premises is the responsibility of the Parliament Secretariat, particularly the Lok Sabha. So, I mean, do you think that makes that's a significant issue in the whole situation?
Yes, definitely.
Quickly,
because we, as you know, that we have a 3-layered parliament security system there. Delhi Police covers outside the boundary of Parliament, and inside there is the Parliament security itself,
yes.
and after that watch and ward system. And inside Parliament there is no weapon is allowed, only the bouncers and other security watch and ward people are deployed there. So that's very important that every part of that security layer, they should be trained, they should be briefed properly, and they should know what is their exact duties there. They should not be in confusion that if something happens, and more particularly that's need of our now, that they should do some dummy exercise under these circumstances. If something happens like this, what is to be done? That is more important.
I believe those drills are being conducted from time to time, but definitely there is a lot of scope for improvement.
Yes, improvement.
Allow me to come to Colonel RSN Singh here. Colonel Singh, as you also may have followed in the media, we have all done, you know, there was a lot of coverage of this socio-economic status of these people who, you know, who jumped into Parliament, or those who were outside helping them. Now, of course, they have all been caught. But the question again arises, the people are finding political links of these people, which is not a crime by itself. But when you find they are connected politically, when you find that an effort is made to create a situation to explain why they did what they did, and so much of stress on their socio-economic status, and then the fact that the government, you know, I mean, it goes on to political parties picking up that from the cue from there and trying to create a situation that there's a lot of unrest in the youth of the country. What kind of a message are we giving to the world by doing this? Are we not taking the security breach issue to, you know, to unrelated subjects totally? And what do you see? Is there a political design, do you think?
No, you know, there was a common refrain before that terror has no mazhab, it has no ideology. So I put a counter question that there are 5 lakhs displaced Kashmiri Hindus. Not one of them, you know, not one Kashmiri Pandit turned into a terrorist.
Correct.
Isn't it? So this cock and bull story, you know, socio-economic, I mean, it really holds no ground. In any society, in any family, in any organizations, there will be people who will be dissatisfied. Even if you are, say, employed, you may still be the most dissatisfied man. So that's not a problem. But yes, I totally agree with what the panelists have said, that, see, Parliament is the nerve center of democracy. It is the hub of spoke. The spoke goes to various legislatures in the country. So what happens is Parliament, it has a cascading effect, you know, all round. As far as the security of legislatures are concerned, So no way you can ban the entry of people. Because that is why visitors galleries are made, and it's not only the students and other visitors. There often, not very often, there are foreign delegations which watch these proceedings, and it's the same all over the world. So you cannot have this kind of thing. What to put it simply, what has happened is, let me explain this, that the security of the parliament is divided into two segments. One is the parliamentary security, watch and whatever you call it, and the other is the police. Now, the identification of the visitor is done by the watch and ward, right in the end. Physical checking is carried out by the police. So that is the arrangement. Now, what has happened where things have gone wrong in this case is that the first two rows are always under constant constant vigil. In fact, the visitors are not even allowed to put their legs up. That is the kind of there has been some let up there, but yes, you are right, because of the reckless action, not reckless actions. I mean, this terrorist actions, I would call it. Things need to be revamped, and I'm sure. I mean, it must be being done.
Yes, and in fact, the Home Minister himself is on record that he does not consider it a small matter. He has admitted that there is certainly a serious breach that happened, but at the same time, yes, sir. Please make your point quickly.
Yes, but the punishment meted out to them should be no different than it is done for other terrorists, or even say 2001 attack on Parliament.
Fine.
Because ultimately it is the deterrence which matters. Remember this.
Fine, sir. So ultimately, it's the deterrence which matters, and it must be treated as a terror act. And I believe the FIR that has been registered in the case makes that point very clear. But I have very little time left with me, so I'll quickly come to Dr. Chakshu Roy here and try to understand from him, since this is media scan, Dr. Roy. One question that I must have clarified with you is, it's a lot of light-hearted banter goes with it, which is all fine. But at the end of the day, that piece of canister, which was recovered, thrown by the woman outside the parliament premises, that was, sort of shown around by our reporter friends, by our fraternity all around, just to score their points of a good spot reporting. But the fact remains that that canister was perhaps one of the most crucial pieces of evidence, because that was perhaps the only thing that they left behind. So, do you also think that the training of our media persons to cover such, emergencies and especially terror-like situations is not up to the mark, and the media needs to really, pull its socks up and become more sensitive to these coverages and stories?
I think there's a broader need for responsibility in how we discharge our professional duties. I think Rao Saab will be able to better talk about the evidence and how to handle what is the evidence on the ground so that it does not get contaminated. But I think in general, whether it is Parliament, whether it is media, when there are incidents like this, there has to be a higher degree of responsibility that should be exercised when we are talking about these things. Because these are one-off incidences, and if they are not treated with the right kind of lens, then it might do a disservice to the nation. So I think that is something that we should definitely keep in mind when there are incidents like, and there are sensitive issues, right? I mean, they are multidimensional, they are sensitive. So where is that sense of responsibility that we should be looking at? I think that's something that we should keep in mind.
Thank you for making that so clear for our viewers. But I'm afraid that's all the time that we had, and there are a lot of questions still left on the table. Perhaps we'll have to catch up one of these days again to understand better. But meanwhile, viewers, we will be keenly waiting not only for the Delhi Police Special Cell investigation to come out, or and if there is a larger conspiracy behind it. But also the committee that is going into it, appointed by the Home Ministry, about, you know, how best to make our parliament and our parliamentarians work safer, but at the same time allow people to maintain that bridge between our legislative institutions and the common people of the country, who are really the bedrock of democracy. But on that note, gentlemen, thank you very much for finding the time and sharing your thoughts so in such detail with all of us. We will get back on Media Scan one of these evenings again. Until then, it's a wrap up for this episode of Media Scan. See you next weekend. Namaskar.